It wouldn't have worked with the lid on?
Rick.
Go ahead.
So the beer, instead of being discharged after the filler, it goes to the West Side Market. They make bratwurst and sausages for us with the beer. Zoe's Bakery from the east side here takes our spent grain. They make pretzels and bread with our spent product. We take the low-fill Edmund Fitzgerald Porter. Mitchell's Ice Cream makes a chocolate chip porter ice cream. Again, this relates to water in the sense that we've not discharging all these products down their waste streams. We're taking them and then finding a different home for it. We talked to the McDonough group, and Boole and McDonough's forte is architecture. And and my brother Dan was so smitten by his concept of redesigning and breaking the paradigm of take, make, waste, that we've enlisted their company, and they're working on a project right now where they'll be coming to the brewery in a couple of weeks, and we will be talking about a better utilization of yeast, where it could be potentially converted to ethanol. We've been talking about capturing the CO2 that is created during fermentation to use for more packaging. We're talking about using red roofs, green roofs rather, and using it on our buildings to capture rainwater, which then could become a place for habitat for your buildings, and also it would keep the buildings cool in the summer because you've got green opportunities up there, and it'll keep better insulation for the winter. So all these things we're working on. The reason why I mention it is because I think we've come pretty far on the low-hanging fruit. Now it's time to ratchet it up and talk about capturing heat from our boilers to make electricity, or taking the heat that comes off our roaring, boiling brewing operation and maybe putting it in the tank farm where we just had equipment freezing when it dropped below zero a couple weeks ago. The other thing that we've just embarked on this year is another relationship with Western Reserve Historical Society and Gaynor Davis, who's sitting in the room today. We just decided that after years of having a small garden not far from the brewery where we've been taking brewery waste and vermicomposting. Vermicomposting is where you feed worms your waste, and then when they digest it and you extract it, it's called castings, and it's great organic fertilizer. So down at the Kentucky Gardens, across the street from where Dan Norton lives, there's this small plot that we've been growing vegetables for years, but we've asked Gaynor and John Grabowski if we could work with Hale about ramping up the whole experiment of growing organic vegetables. And the beauty of Hale Farm was it's supposed to replicate a 19th century village, and it's an absolutely magical part of the world down there. It's very peaceful, and we said, could we do a little pint-sized farm and grow the way they used to grow in the 19th century? So as people were meandering through the village on their tour of 19th century America, lo and behold, they've come upon this small operation where they're growing organically. We eschew the use of any chemicals, fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides. All we're doing is adding brewery waste into the ground, turning it in, using the vermicomposting and soil amendment, and we're growing all these vegetables and herbs that are coming back to the restaurant, and it's on our menu. So it's a perfect another manifestation of take, make, remake. And what does this have to do with water? Well, everything ultimately has to do with water, but this means that these synthetic fertilizers are not being discharged into rivers and tributaries and streams. They're not up in the river, in the lake. And so if we as a culture had this paradigm shift and all of us think this way, so much the better for our healthiness as consumers, because all the obesity and strokes and heart attacks and cancer, a lot of it I think is food-based anyway. And so if we can improve the environment, improve our health, improve our bottom line, because now you don't have to buy the fertilizers, which is all based on oil, and oil prices are going to be going up again. That means the fertilizer is going to cost more. So if we keep thinking of all these other ways of trying to grow things organically, I think there's so many win-wins across the board. How could you not love it? The last thing I'd like to say is we've established a Burning River Foundation. One of our beers is called the Burning River Pale Ale after obviously the June 22nd, 1969 event, but we called it that because we feel fervently that there's so many great things now that have come on the scene as it relates to water. And even though we've taken on the companies that were vomiting toxins into the river, and those point source offenders have been prosecuted and have told to stop the exercise, it still means that there's so much more that we have to do. This whole thing about our population in Northeast Ohio remained the same, but now double of the amount of square miles have been gobbled up, all this beautiful green farmland. That means that this impervious concrete and shopping malls and schoolyards and churchyards and all that, there's not a place for the water to run. And so if we could get people to start talking about pervious concretes where the water can get back into terra firma, if we could encourage more local farming, that we encourage people to become farmers again. It's become a pejorative issue now. If you wanted to become a farmer, people think that you had two heads. What's wrong with that? Because doesn't it make sense to want to know where your food's grown? I mean, it's the thing that is probably one of the most important things in your life, to know that you are eating something healthy, but for somehow we've relegated to a minor level of importance. I want to know where my food comes. Who knows what kind of water people used in other areas of the country, if not the world? Who knows what kind of fertilizers they used? All the E. coli issues, and now with the peanut butter, these things are raging, and it could become more serious, especially when big, massive producers can produce food for multiple countries around the world. And if something goes right, look at how many more people could potentially get hurt. So these are, I think, ultimately big, serious security issues. So the Burning River Fest is what we're holding every year, and this is our 9th year, and we want to hold it now at the Coast Guard Station this year. Normally we do it at a much bigger venue like Nautica or the Whiskey Island, but because of the economy and the dollar shrinking, we're going to do a smaller, more truncated, trimmed-down version, and we've chosen the Coast Guard Station because it's one of those iconic structures at the mouth of the Cuyahoga River. If you've not seen it, it's got this beautiful, modern, Art Deco, sleek, slender lines that's supposed to replicate a boat. And it was built in the late 30s, and it wasn't duplicated again because World War II came, and it was the only one built, and it's absolutely stunning. And we want to resurrect it. We want to preserve it and maybe have some water quality operations out there, maybe a small dining operation so it could be a venue for dinners or parties. And then we'd also like to have a fundraising and then have a schooner built that resembled the schooners that used to ply the waters of the Great Lakes in the 19th century, and then have it moored there permanently and take people out on water quality tours so they know more about water, they know more about the lake, they know more about the river, and so when you learn to love it, then you have an incentive to want to save it. So to wrap up, what I wanted to say is come to the Burning River Fest. It's going to be the weekend of that June 22nd. It'll be Saturday, June 20th. It'll be at the Coast Guard Station. And we'll have there, besides all the food will be from organic and local farms, and of course all of our award-winning beer. But we're also going to have some partners like the Sewer District, Linda Mack and Julius Chach, I think, might be part of it this year. And we'd love to have people come, learn more about what the event is, and the dollars go to the Burning River Foundation, which in turn goes to all the groups that work on water quality. Because at the end of the day, we think that these are very timely discussions, because what we don't want, again, is more pollution-based prosperity. We want people to prosper, but we want to have a feeling that people are embracing Mother Nature too, and not be so bold and so crude and so insensitive to the way we operate our businesses. Thanks.
Thank you. Before we get to our questions, Michael has a couple of quick announcements.
Today at the City Club, we are listening to a special program with Pat Conway, co-owner of the Great Lakes Brewing Company, and John Grabowski, Krieger-Mueller Associate Professor in Applied History at Case Western Reserve University, and moderated by WCPN's own Rick Jackson. We'll return to our panel in a moment for our traditional City Club questions. We encourage you to formulate those questions now while we break for a few announcements. We welcome all of you here, especially those who are guests. We hope you'll join the City Club and become active in our ongoing civic dialogue. This Friday, February 20th, our regular forum will feature Dr. Robert Franklin, president of Morehouse College. And on Thursday, February 26th, our speaker will be Harry Alford, president and CEO of the National Black Chamber of Commerce. On Friday, February 27th at 8 a.m., we'll conduct a special forum with Michael Oren, author and senior fellow at the Shalem Center in Jerusalem. Then at noon on the same day, our regular Friday forum will feature sportscaster Billy Packer. Part 2 of the 3-part water series is scheduled for Wednesday, March 18th, and will feature Julius Chach, Executive Director of the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, and Chris Korleski, Ohio EPA Director.